we'll say 7. First up is approval of the minutes. So, August 25th, 2026, Canterbury Planning Board meeting called to order. Were there any suggested minutes for the August 11th, 2026 draft meeting minutes? Any additional suggested edits? Seeing no hands, I'll take a motion to approve those meeting minutes as drafted.
Motion to approve.
Megan, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
I abstain, I wasn't here.
All right. Next up, continuation of the hearing for 2026-8, which is map 258 lot 16. For stage, there's a few new people, but just to briefly orient everyone, you were here 2 meetings ago, and we were at the point of reviewing your application for completeness. There were some concerns that we expressed regarding additional information, and so we continued it to give you an opportunity to provide additional information as part of your application so we could revisit completeness. So that's what we're going to start with today. Before I turn it over to you, just sort of a reminder to everyone, keep things civil, and I mean, sometimes we have professionals who are up here and things can get a little bit more heated just in the sense that we're going through questions, but I just hope everyone, both public and members of the board and you as well, can just sort of keep calm and try not to ask questions, even if they're innocent questions, in a way that's not polite or disrespectful. Otherwise, could you, in addition to the new information you have, just briefly cover what information you've provided to the board with your application? So we have a couple members who weren't here last time.
Sorry.
You can ask questions too, it's fine.
So like what we want to do with the property?
So, right at this stage, rather than, there's sort of 2 things that we have to determine. The second part, which we're not doing right away, is we're going to talk in detail about what you want to do, the uses, and we're going to go through all of the site plan standards. The first piece where we're at right now is just there was a checklist of information that should be with the site plan, and you prepared a site plan application, you attached some supporting materials, you went and got some additional supporting materials in between the last 2 meetings. And so we're just looking at not the substance of what's in them, but the type of information you provided to see if we have at least a fair minimum to say your application is complete, so that it's going to be a productive discussion on the merits.
Okay. So I spoke with New Hampshire DES about the bathrooms, and they said that that would be at a state level because we weren't putting in a septic or a town level because we weren't putting in a septic system or putting in water. So it would just be on town requirements. Chief Gamache came out and walked the main area that we would be, and said that if the town approved it, then he would come out and do an official fire, like safety approval. And at that point, he did say that like when he would have to approve the wood stove that goes in, and that we would have to put a battery CO2 monitor in the yurt, that the yurt material though was fire resistant, and that was all good. He checked out the bridges. I spoke with someone from New Hampshire Fish and Game, and he came out and did a site walk. Went over the types of land, the soil that he found present, the trees that were present, said that it was all like dry ground trees. It wasn't trees that would grow in more wet and swamp areas and wetlands. And he sent in an email and some photographs and maps and stuff. And I think that was the majority of the
And
concerns.
then, so I'll try to summarize some of the prior stuff if that helps sort of move
Yeah.
along, and you correct me if I say anything wrong, so. For those who were not here, so this site plan was through, you have this plan, but it was through like a online software where they took like Google Maps information and put.
Is this the site plan?
That is the site plan,
And
and
this is what you're planning, this is what you wanna get approved as a site plan?
yeah, and this is what we had 30 days ago, and I'm correct, there's no revisions to this.
So you had asked for of the property setbacks. And I just drew on here the property setbacks to give an idea. The red to give an idea of the setbacks. And then the flood map was a dated flood map, and Ted from Fish and Game sent me this one that I stapled on.
Do you know where the, I think there's two, your land is in two different zones, is that true?
I don't believe
Residential
so.
and something else?
So I got a zoning exception to do a school, with, under the condition that the site plan was approved.
I think you were referring to the requirement that the zoning districts be shown on the site plan.
Right, so what zone is this in?
Rural?
Rural. Well, in the notes in the top left says says rural / residential. Right?
I'm pretty sure that's what it says on the town map.
But the zones don't go through your land somewhere. It's all in one zone.
I believe so. To the best of my knowledge, yeah.
And just clarify as well, there's the key packs as a glance document put together.
And I
this is-
submitted a new one, requesting 8 students to start and with the ability to grow to 15. The additional students wouldn't be full-time, it would be requesting to have the ability to do like a part-time program, either for like an older age group, to come a couple days a week.
And some of this we'll get into more sort of on the
Yeah.
substance piece, but just in terms of baseline information, I forget if the programs may include part, is that the same as before, or were there any updates in terms of the specificity of what actual activities we have on the property?
No,
Okay, so where we started with and sort of ended with, by the way. I'm using my thing, the wrong one. Was there were waiver requests related to wetland delineation, sort of the big one. Scale, DES, septic and gray water approvals, and did I lose one other?
I request an exception for bearings.
For what?
Bearings.
So that's where we're at, I think at this point, if it's, unless you have anything to add, I think it's helpful just to open it up to the people that we're just talking completeness. And as that will relate to waivers for wetland delineation by wetland scientists as a threshold requirement. And I think just before we start that, I'll flag, I mean, we can take inferior information and say we have at least some information, if that's all the applicant is willing to provide, say had an opportunity and didn't come back with different wetland information other than the it was an email or a letter from the person from Fish and Game who's not a wetland scientist. But I don't know if that's necessarily a bar to acceptance. It may be that it's insufficient substantively for us to approve it. but we can sort of talk through that in terms of completeness. So happy to hear anyone's thoughts, any questions for the applicant.
I'm under the impression that we require a written, the waiver requests need to be written form.
They are, I just having trouble finding it.
I have a question, I'm not sure which category it belongs in. Just sort of to go through the zoning thing, you're an educational facility, that's the category in the zoning ordinance that you fit into after whatever you did with the ZBA?
Yeah, that's where they put me into,
Okay.
yes.
There, to my knowledge, there have been 3 or 4 schools in Canterbury, and one which I'm pretty familiar with, they had I don't know what it means exactly, but a public water system that was, I don't know whether I don't know which department, it was DES or but it was a state thing, and I'm just wondering, and I thought that was a requirement of an educational facility, and so I'm wondering how you like to get around that.
To be part of the Department of Education, for an accredited school, yes, but we're not proposing to be an accredited school. It's a homeschool enrichment program, so it doesn't fall under Department of Education requirements.
And is there like a Department of Education rule or law that makes that distinction?
So if we were a school, we would follow like attendance, and we would have to meet the attendance requirements. And this isn't intended to be a full-time like school. So it's just like an enrichment program for homeschoolers.
Follow-up question, but I don't know, Brendan, if you want to get into that now, or if you want to
I think-
keep it to the
I think that's kind of
completeness,
more sort of the
substance.
substance.
Okay,
This is
I'll
more.
go back up and.
I mean, I think it's a fair starting point, and we part of this is we talked about some of that last time in terms of
minutes, but.
what information we might need. So the waiver requests as it relates, and if you see anything else we're missing. Property line bearings, the scale of 1 inch to 80 feet, which there, and then yeah, it's not, I guess it's not, right now, so just missing this, but include wetland delineation, stamp survey plan, and are not listed, but are things that we should address, and then water supply and septic system. If we have at least some information now from the applicant, there's an email correspondence from DES, and we can talk about that substantively when we get there. And same with water and septic, so they're same. So the question, I guess, or as I see it, is we flagged 30 days ago that there's clearly, even by the own plan, a brook which constitutes a wetland under state law. We have a wetland setback ordinance. There is not a delineation on the plan. There is not a limited area that you have depicted on the plan that you're saying educational activities will only be in a particular place yet. For purposes of completeness, given that they had an opportunity to provide more information and didn't, can we take this existing plan as it is and the communications from DES and the communication from the Fish and Game person, and just that's our starting point, and if it becomes an evidentiary issue, that's a merits question, but or do we say as a matter of completeness, we don't have enough to figure this out?
Well, does the waiver go to completeness?
The waiver only goes to completeness. It does
Okay.
not go to, if we think that there's an issue with a certain
Yeah.
thing, like we can still address that on the merits.
It would seem to me that given the use of this, why would, it seems like I would be willing to waive the wetland delineation because all the buildings are already there, so the wetland setbacks isn't relevant, and the use doesn't seem to have a big impact on wetlands, so.
the part that we discussed about that and why delineation is important is, all of the activities are proposed to be permanently outside the structures, not inside the structure was the representation. Originally, it was 30 kids and 3 students, and so there is a reduction between last time and this time where it's, instead of the full maximum amount of a potential school down the road, as I understand it, is now just homeschool enrichment, just 8 students with, if I'm understanding right, the possibility of 7 part-time, I'm still calling them students, but children, for a maximum of 15. And there's a list of uses. Programs may include, but when we talked, it's not entirely clear what outdoor learning might mean in terms of how they're using the actual property and what impact it might have on wetlands. But I think we can get into that more at this point. Megan?
I mean, in terms of the impact on wetlands, we have a composting facility and no indication of where gray water goes.
So, again, and that's where I think we'll get there. The question is sort of, we asked about delineation.
That's why.
We don't have a wetland scientist delineating it, and if waiving a stamp plan doesn't mean we can't find it. We have evidence that there's wetlands on the property, we have insufficient evidence that of the locations, and we have insufficient evidence that the proposed uses are gonna have an impact, so we can, if we need to, either deny or ask for more information about activities later, it doesn't hurt us in that sense. But we are working, or will be working with a non-surveyed plan with non-delineated wetlands, which is part of why we did the sidewalk. Makes sense? Sorry if I sound a little bit like I'm spinning in circles. So I'm inclined, please ask any questions in terms of the baseline information, but I'm inclined to say that at this point, this is, you are choosing to proceed with this information as your completed packet, and if it affects the merits, it affects the merits, but it shouldn't be a bar to us accepting the application to start that discussion. Does that make sense? Doesn't hurt us in any sense in that regard.
So we're taking this as complete.
That would be my suggestion, yeah, and
We're gonna vote on that, whether it's complete or not.
yes, that's what we're first voting on. And I don't think it ties our hands in any regard as to whether, whether after it's complete, but it's not sufficient for purposes of approving a site plan for the proposed use. Okay?
Yeah.
Always tied up in completeness. Some municipalities don't have any discussion on completeness and don't have the applicant say anything, and they just look at the materials and don't give you a chance to talk. But we're not talking. So, I would take a motion to accept as not complete or to accept as complete, and we can discuss at that point and move forward.
And the list of things that are not included that we would normally include are limited to, and this is a question, are limited to wetland delineation scale, bearings and septic.
I think there's
Yeah.
some more, if you were to strictly go through all of the site plan requirements, if you think that a normal survey plan is going to have elevations.
I got 11.
So I think there are a lot more, but I think the biggest ones are wetland delineation and the fact that it's not a to scale engineered plan.
Yeah.
So it might be helpful if you read them off, that'd be great too, so.
Fine.
Parking dimensions, driveway site distance, missing wetland delineation, steep slopes, well and water source, wastewater, gray water disposal, stormwater drainage, fire access, fire water information, lighting, which I don't know, what it applies here.
Alright, thank you.
Snow management, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know there's some that are just finding it quick.
So I think, right, undisputed, not the type of document that we would want in the first instance, but it is the document that the applicant has put forth, and this is what we have, so.
Are we gonna vote on a waiver of each?
I think we can just take a vote on complete as is based on the two things, which is that the applicant has had an opportunity and they've provided some additional information, but this is the application they want to move forward on.
Well, the reason I brought up water in the context of completeness was that, as you said, septic and water and stuff is part of completeness, and so I feel like it's as a tautology.
The information we got last time when we talked a little bit more is that there would not be running water, period. There would be, right, it was like 15-gallon
Yeah.
rolling tank just to like do a hand pump to wash hands. And the toilet system would be a composting toilet system, and we can, there's example systems, and I'm sure we'll talk more about those in a little bit, but there's at least proposed information for water, drinking water, septic.
So the fact that there's no water on it in septic doesn't mean that it's not complete, it means that there's no septic system. So I understand.
And we get,
Yeah.
far enough down the road, it may be that we're requiring certain revisions to the plan before it can be recorded to show certain things, and adding conditions or, whatever else we need to do. for
Did
certain
we
things.
not request that the septic system for the house be marked on the map? I thought I remembered that being a request. And I haven't seen the big map that has apparently had some additions to it, but.
You're right, no, yeah, correct us. So, we don't have that information, at least on the plan, but we can acquire it. Okay, is there a motion to approve the application materials the applicant chose to submit as complete? We can move to discussing site plan itself on the substance.
Is the gray water system just contained in that one building? So there's no system, it's a, is it Clivus Multrum or is it a pit, what's the?
So the sink would be, it's a foot pump.
Yeah.
And the water comes from one tank and it comes out the spout and then it drains into the second tank.
Okay,
Where
and
is
what about the composting
The
toilet?
composting toilet, it's an all-in-one composting toilet, and it breaks down over time and then at that point can be put outside.
Okay,
It's compost, natural material.
where is the gray water from the sink disposed?
it's in a tank,
It can just be dumped in the septic system. It's 5 gallons. The pump estimates that I think it's 30 hand washes is about 5 gallons of water. And our septic is rated to add that a day.
and you're just gonna pump out the big.
So it's just like a thing and it pops up and it has wheels and you can pull it right up to the house.
Oh, you're just gonna pull it up the house and put it into the
Yeah.
septic.
So it is going into the home septic.
It will, yes.
It's not what this says.
We can,
It seems that we're
Try.
going to discuss the merits of this, one way or another. I will make your motion that we consider this complete so that we can.
Oh, sorry, can I bring up just one more point before I vote on completeness? And I don't know if this prohibits us from voting on completeness, but what is proposed is different than what the ZBA approval was. And it said in the minutes ZBA and the approval ZBA expressly said changes are required to go back to the ZBA. So
yeah, so I don't think that stops us from accepting as complete, but when we're discussing it, maybe if we think that the special exception they got doesn't cover the proposed use, then a condition is you need to get an amended special exception.
so it doesn't affect the completeness question.
They at least, they have a special exception and we can sort of evaluate that as we go.
Alright, I'll second. Did you make the motion?
I think I made at least most of a motion. I'm moving that we accept this
Alright.
as complete with the waivers which we listed recently, and I'm not going to relist unless somebody makes me.
I don't think we need to specifically list waivers, we'll say that the materials they
Consider
submitted
this a complete application so that we can discuss comments.
Okay.
Seconded.
Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain. Alright. So I think it's 6:01. Alright. Sorry this side, now, more of the substance, this is the part where it's very helpful for you to explain exactly what programmatic things the homeschool enrichment program would do, you talked a little bit about the number of students or children, the amount of hours, where on the property specific things will be or won't be, any steps that you would take to protect the wetlands on the property, how you're gonna do the septic and DES, all of those things that you have information about, you can go through, so I'll leave it to you to start, but if you have questions, let me know and I'll move it along.
Okay, so I'm trying to present information that's as accurate as possible. With that being said, some of the systems hadn't been purchased at the time of presenting the information. So like the toilets, I think at this point I've narrowed down, I've mentioned a few, but we're gonna go with the Sunmar and that will be all in one. And there will be two in the stall, one in each stall. The New Hampshire DES was the one that gave me some more information on how to do the hand washing station. The program is for homeschool students. It's not a school. It's a nonprofit. So Wildcat is a nonprofit. It's geared mainly to do a 2 or 3 day option in an enrichment program to the core curriculum that they do at home to meet their schooling requirements. We'll do things like animal tracking, tree identification, learning about the different seasons, native animals, gardening. It's geared to get kids outside and connected to nature. We'll do things like yoga, art projects. When I came in, I presented kind of the full dream vision. And the plan the whole time was to kind of start small and build to that. But I had gotten advice to present like the full vision, to give like the goals to the town. Since then I've scaled back and I'm just proposing like the initial starting point, and at that point if I want to expand and go to some of those things that I had talked about early on, I would come back and present again with a more prepared plan and stuff. We have set up somebody to come and do a full site plan for the spring as soon as they could come out. And at that point, we'll have that on hand if we do wish to come back and expand and stuff. But right now, we're just asking for 8 full-time spots and the ability to have up to 15 kids on the property if we do want to add like a second program a couple days a week.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are there gonna be kids there 5 days a week in regular school time frame, whatever, 8 to 3 or whatever?
We're not necessarily saying we wouldn't allow somebody, but it's not really, the program's not intended to be like that. It's intended to be 2 or 3 days, but there have been some families that have asked if they could come 5 days. But it still wouldn't come with like an accredited program. They would still be required to do other educational things to meet the state criteria at their own time.
What are you currently marketing on your website? 2, 3, 5 days?
All of the above.
Yeah.
So your web, did you
I
get
read
it?
it earlier today.
Yeah,
So you are marketing for 5 day.
yeah, it is allowed.
And it seems like a strange question. Do you have children?
I have 4 kids, we homeschool.
Will they be included in that 8 count?
No. So it would be 8 kids outside of our own coming to the property.
So it, okay. But are they participating in the programs?
2 of them are eligible for the age group that we're starting with for the 8. My oldest goes to another program 3 days a week. And then my youngest is 2.
The Sunmark toilets, I'm guessing there's different sizes of them,
Yeah, there's different
And-
sizes and different styles.
and I'm guessing maybe that we've sized it to fit, 15 kids for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Full time.
That's-
Well, it wouldn't be, we wouldn't have, yes.
How many staff do you have?
1 and myself.
One more.
1 staff, 1 teacher and then myself.
So am I missing where you're asking for 8 to 15, because everything I read is.
I
the
submitted a
full-
new,
A new,
yeah,
is that posted?
It's in your email.
There's emailed and there's copies printed right there. Somewhere.
I think it came out like today.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, some of the things we haven't talked about at least tonight, catch up, can you describe the differences of the proposed activities between seasons, the difference between fall and spring versus winter, when there's snow sometimes, it's cold sometimes, and also summer when it's not in a regular sort of school year cycle?
So activities in the fall, we would do, art geared more towards like using the leaves that have fallen, just learning about the leaves falling and how the different trees alter throughout seasons. Winter, we can do a little more with like tracking in the snow and snow crafts and playing in the snow. I
I meant, I guess, more is with regard to summer, is that going to be different in the sense that I think, like, people can go to a summer camp and do things that are much less educational and much more
it would still be learning
intensive.
about,
And in the winter, what steps need to be taken in terms of protecting children who are coming on your property from the elements?
so we would require them to dress for the season, appropriate clothing, layers, extra clothes, snowsuits. The yurt is set up to have a wood stove inside. Summertime, it'll just be like a year-round homeschool program, so it'll still be educational, learning about the ecosystem.
So for purposes of your proposed use, there's no difference between school year.
No, there's no like
attendees and
change
summer
to the
attendees, it's
program.
still-
It's year-round, geared towards homeschool families.
Is the washroom heated or insulated?
So it will be insulated. We just haven't finished building it. We were trying to kind of get this going before we put everything into it. We're just using our personal
Will it be on any
expenses.
kind of a foundation? Right now it's on stick.
No. We plan to use spray foam insulation to insulate the bottoms and the walls and sheetrock the inside.
And will there be a heating source?
I don't think so.
Will water freeze if it's not, then composting.
So the
doesn't
water
work,
will
and,
come in and out and the compost, the,
Compost doesn't work
In
at
winter.
cold temperatures.
the company that puts out the toilet said that if it's insulated, then it should be fine. And if it's too cold, then we can get a they sell a solar powered heater at the toilet company that we can have installed. We have solar panels and a battery.
You should come see my composted toilet, solar powered.
So back to what Joshua brought up earlier, and the difference between an ED 320 and ED 400. So the 400 is the school you're talking about, it's credited. You included a letter from the Department of Education approving your name for a non-public school, which is an ED 320. So
So
I'm
that
curious if you continued with the approval for an ED 320?
No, so that was for My Village, which was a separate LLC, which originally I had come wanting to do a school, and there was a lot of so originally I came to have two programs, Wild Kid and My Village. And the Department of Education was for My Village, which was going to be a school. But because of all of the criteria we had to meet and the lack of personal funds to meet that criteria, we've scaled down and are starting with a nonprofit program. And if we get approved and can start that and have funds coming in, then we'll continue to put it into the property and the buildings to hopefully bring up to code to be able to meet requirements.
So is there no regulation at all on the state level, not even as a daycare?
The program kind of, that's been the struggle, is the program falls in between. It's kind of a gray area. It's not considered a daycare, but it's also not an accredited school. It's just a homeschool enrichment
Yeah.
program, but it's still a business,
So
so.
for daycare, for instance, the teacher has to be fingerprinted, right, and it can't be a sex offender or whatever. And there's like some sort of basic requirements like that seem like responsible as a town, we should be ensure that it's done responsibly. I'm not suggesting that you won't, but
We have like a handbook and all of our employees would be required to pass a background check. They will be fingerprinted. We have safety things in place in our handbook that we plan to follow. But with where we fall as far as a program, it doesn't fall under daycare laws and it doesn't fall under an accredited school.
So there's no oversight, is what you're saying.
Sort of, yeah. It's a gray area.
Welcome to New Hampshire homeschool.
Well, it's not home, so.
something's wrong.
Homeschool applies to homeschooling of your own children, which you report to DSA, children are being homeschooled, not other people's children. Going to a building that's not
That's my
their own
understanding.
home, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it sounds a bit like daycare, it's either or. Would it be onerous to comply with the daycare requirements? Look, too onerous to be a accredited school, I understand that, but to be a daycare, is it the same problem?
Same problem as far as,
The regulations are, the criteria, in your words, are too high.
so when I spoke to I don't know the name of the department, but for daycare, they basically just said that we don't fall under daycare because we're not, the intention isn't to have just a full-time program. So it's not daycare ages. It's just a program that enriches the curriculum of homeschool students. And it's done in a residential area versus like there's some programs in Concord on Main Street that offer similar programs and half-day programs, and they're just like businesses. They don't follow daycare laws or like Department of Education laws. It's just like the town laws of the location and meeting the city laws.
They offer programs, I mean, think about Thousand Pines offers occasional programs for children, there's a membership, you can bring your kids there, but parents are with their children, they are responsible. It's not a place you drop your children off to on a consistent, regular cadence, which is childcare, right? It's either childcare or school.
I have a question for the chair. Are we allowed to, can we require periodic check-in from the proprietor annually or every other annual, every other year or something to make sure that, it's no more than the number of kids that can be served by the gray water system, or is there anything
That's
like that?
unfortunately not typically how town enforcement of all these approvals. It's the same with zoning ordinance. It's sort of, if the town gets evidence, right, code inspector could go look at potential violations if there was a report, if it was, clear that they're advertising however many spots or whatever it is, or a neighbor complains because they see 40 cars coming in, that kind of stuff would trigger it, but we don't sort of as a society do ongoing monitoring of each person's property.
Well, town isn't set up to do this. Doesn't have-
And we couldn't,
Right.
even if we could.
we don't have staff that
Yeah.
are knowledgeable and trained and available.
So, I have questions, my understanding that children have been going there, so you got the ZBA approval and children, bless you, have been going.
We've met with like parents and like had like meetups for like homeschool meetups, but not like a drop-off program.
Okay, children haven't been attending.
No.
Any kind of programs.
No, nothing paid, no paid programs.
Is there some variance between the approval you got from the ZBA, and you raised this, Megan, is there some difference between what you're doing or what you're telling us and what the ZBA approved?
So the ZBA approved for me to also run the ability to run the school, run an educational program if I met criteria, like approved for the Department of Education. And we're just not pushing forward with that right now because it's just really expensive.
Yeah.
So we're trying to scale back and find a place where we can start and build something.
So with this ZBA approved.
But when we went to the ZBA, we also requested to do the Wild Kid programs, the nonprofit programs, as well as the school.
So what the ZBA approved were 3 classrooms with heat and bubblers, offering bus service to exit 18 so that there wasn't traffic in the site. And
So this
the
discussion.
minutes said that operation hours were addressed and defined, but I didn't see the actual definition in the minutes everywhere, what was agreed upon. So now it's not 3 classrooms, it's the wash house. I don't think you're offering bus service.
So I believe the number was once we hit 15 students, we would offer bus service.
Is that still?
Well, we're only proposing 15 max.
Were those
So
other
once you hit
conditions
15
based on 15 too?
At the bus service. So if you hit 15
Yes.
students, will you be
We will
offering
offer a bus service,
bus
yes.
service from exit 17?
Were the 3 classrooms and the bubblers part of the condition of the ZBA approval,
That was my understanding.
or only if there's more than 15 kids?
So that was if we grew to bigger, then we would have 3 classrooms and we wanted to propose a building to be built to house 3 classrooms. But we've scaled back and aren't asking to do that large of a program.
I think there's a different scale, and it is helpful that between 30 days ago, when the application was still 30 students, 3 teachers, no sort of maximum number of days for any of those students. That we have a smaller proposal, it's not a school, it's homeschool enrichment, and if we approve something that is homeschool enrichment, that would be a binding criteria, even if the special
And
exception
there-
should be approved
Or
broader
something
than what
broader,
the site
something
complaint is.
And they're 8-week programs, so you would sign up for 8 weeks and then it runs in 8-week increments. So just because you sign up doesn't mean that you're coming all the days. It's an
So-
8-week segment, so you can sign up for 8 weeks, do the 8 weeks, and then not be committed to the full year.
And what I think what will be important is if we get to that point is making sure the conditions are very express in terms of maximums that are on the plan, and that basically allows the public to know and us to know, and that there's not ambiguity that there's a special exception for a much bigger potential school.
Yeah. For me, there's just a lot of ambiguity, especially, you're saying this is a homeschool enrichment, which sounds to me like there's families who homeschool, and if they wanna do a particular program with you, they would bring the kid over to have a kid for some sort of enrichment. But what's proposed is a full school day, before school care, after school care, modeling off of the Canterbury Elementary School calendar. And I know you said My Village is not the intent, but that is on your updated thing, that this is both Wildcat and My Village.
So we were trying to propose something that we could grow into.
This is your newest one that you said.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I don't know. I guess I don't understand how it works.
So the core difference just in terms of site plan review is that if the end goal is 30 students, we would need to approve a plan that concretely could handle 30 students full-time for all of those hours, have sufficient sanitation facilities, ensures that if at maximum capacity, there wouldn't be impact on wetlands or abutters through noise, smoke, any of those other things. That heating and the structures in terms of the winter would be sufficient for 33 people excluding your family. If it's limited to a fewer amount, we can improve that limited amount, saying that maybe we don't have the information because you just have 2 composting toilets and a hand washing station for 33 people, but maybe we have sufficient for 8.
Which is why I tried to
or
come
15.
back this time and scale it back, because obviously 2 bathrooms wouldn't be enough for 30 students. So it wouldn't make sense to propose the 30 students now.
And that is helpful, and I just wanna be clear though, that also means that if there's a intent to go above anything that we approve now,
We
to
would
some
come
to get
back.
30, you have to come back,
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and our applicant has been specific that it's not just 15, but it's 8 and 7.
Right, and if we have to talk about those numbers and figure that piece out, we can, and we will be very, very specific in terms of capacity.
Yeah.
Because the capacity also goes into what information we need to confirm with someone who has actual knowledge that 8 students times a maximum of 5 days and 9 hours a day using the facilities would be sufficient, or whatever the number is, like
Yeah.
if it's 15.
I think for the purposes of discussing things like sanitation, we do have to include our own kids in the student numbers,
So
not to, throw a small wrench into.
I agree, I mean, in terms of if they are using those
If
facilities.
they're using those facilities during the day, then we need
If
to
they are
consider
not
them.
using those facilities and using their house, it's different, but yeah, I think that's totally fair, I think we need to talk through that.
Not that 2 kids makes a huge difference, but it does
Maybe what I'll
make some difference.
propose and just to orient us on different issues, but I'm gonna give a list of things that we just wanna hit. Anyone tell me if there's more you wanna hit, and we'll just go through them one by one, so we're not sort of circling around. One, let's talk about the sidewalk and any observations in terms of areas that might not be appropriate, whether because of debris or wetland or some other reason. Potential wetland and setback issues, and that may require the second issue, which is uses, what and where, and those sort of how those interrelate. The heating system and its sufficiency and safety, septic and gray water, and whether they're scaled appropriate to the maximum proposed, or good to scale it back. Which gets to max students and max hours. And I think we have the answer already on summer hours are intended to be exactly the same. Are there any other big site plan issues that people have concerns with?
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this might be addressed one thing you said, but I'm unclear of the boundaries of residential and where are children allowed to go, not allowed to go, where will they be brought? And I noticed that the playground that you're building is incredibly close to the pond with no barrier. Will there be fencing?
We didn't intend on putting fencing, but we're happy if that's a town requirement to make changes. I guess I'm just kind of trying to figure out like what I can do. I'm trying to propose something that the town will let me start or do, and I don't really know how to best do it. I'm trying to take every meeting and learn from the concerns and come back with something that's more appropriate. So I understand it keeps changing, but it's with the intent to meet the concerns and the requirements of the town. We did have somebody from an insurance company come out and gave us a quote and went through, and they didn't require anything for around the waters, other than for our teachers to go through a water safety course, which is, I believe it's like a little certification thing. And we have to do that to maintain our insurance every year for every employee. But they didn't say that we would need any fencing, to be provided the insurance to cover water activities, animals, etc.
Can I ask you a question? If a child drowns in the pond or gets sick because of feces or something like that, is the town liable for any of that stuff, or is it on her insurance?
I don't think so. I think
think
that's
so
entirely
either.
them, but that doesn't mean that just the purpose of site plan review is still to, approve things that are generally safe. So
Yeah.
we're using our police power, or an extension of police power.
Well, I'm trying to, what I was thinking was because if there's no state oversight of things that we normally think of as having some state oversight, that seems like if my duty in some portion is to the town, thinking of what the town's liabilities are in a situation where a thing that's normally regulated by the state isn't.
And I see more of as like a ethical responsibility
Okay.
for
Alright.
town's police power, not a legal obligation to ensure safety.
I'm not saying anything, it's just hypothetically, if we approved something that was just egregiously unsafe,
Yeah,
I could see liability in that.
right, Ferris wheel without whatever.
I think it would probably be
There's
pretty easy to
a
say
whole
unsafe to
host
come
of
back from.
municipal immunities and a giant pile of cases that I don't know well enough to know all the different exceptions, but we sort of set the bounds and but that doesn't relieve the property owner.
Yeah.
One of my questions is, how about ADA, do you have any kind of ADA regulations that you have to follow?
If we were to be an accredited school, then we would, but not.
Even as a business. I
No.
think to add that would be
No.
fire, I know you spoke with Chief Josh, did he provide you with any kind of letter or anything saying?
No, he
there
said that
were
if the
issues?
town if the town approves it, at that point, he'll come out and do a fire inspection.
They have pond there.
Yeah, but we were thinking more in what he would have to do as part of basically a certificate of occupancy for the yard and ensuring that a wood stove for that structure is both safe inside the structure and sized appropriately and there's sufficient egress. You know, the worst happens.
Well, there's no certificate of occupancy for someone's occupied, right, for a temporary, for a structure that's not.
I think it would be
Yes,
potentially
there
occupied
is.
structure, it's
There's
in the
still a
winter, it's
certificate of
cold,
occupancy.
you know, that's
With the number of, maximum number of people allowed.
This building has been fire inspected,
Oh, right, sure.
nobody occupies
Yeah,
it
so right.
on an ongoing basis. The ADA only really comes into force if somebody makes an ADA complaint. So there's not so much like ADA regulations, it's a list of things that people could complain about. It's an interesting little sector.
Also back to safety, excuse me. Getting an emergency, is there gonna be able to get an emergency vehicle out there? Is that space gonna be accessible, especially in the winter time?
Chief Gamache said it was.
It was, okay, cool.
That they have utility vehicles and the ability to do that.
Perfect.
so. And we could add on more, but I'll just like try to walk us through so we don't lose all time. Good at still reading clock hands.
I have a couple of stray sidewalk items,
You speak up just a little.
put on the list.
Put on the list.
One was the direction I came in from, there was no visible house number. This number from the other direction is very visible, but the direction I came in from, there was no visible house number and no visible mailbox number, because the mailbox is behind another mailbox. That seems like a thing that should be corrected for a business. The other thing is there's a pile of trash fairly close to the educational space, which seems like it presents a safety concern.
Okay, debris on the list. But I'm putting that under the sidewalk concerns.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw those on our list of
Yep.
concerns.
I have seconds.
Alright, so let's talk through the sidewalk and what people observe, which was the first one, and any questions for the applicant related to it, anything that you see that you're concerned about?
You mentioned some of them, like the insulation in the washroom, no boundaries of where children can and cannot be, the trails are unmarked.
They're marked. We have trail markers.
I saw an arrow, but in terms of there's a child lost, is it clearly
They're
marked
color
for children?
coded.
No. The playground being close to the pond, and then I noticed, I think it was Clifton that was walking up the steps to the yard, they were bowing with each step, and the stairs, like the railing was a birch stick resting on the ground, and the base of the stairs there was no base.
They're not finalized stairs.
Okay.
They were just put on
Those
so
are
that we
temporary
could build,
stairs.
yeah, so we could raise and build the yurt.
So I'll start on one that Logan mentioned, which is, I'm looking at this map as you come up the driveway, you go over that first bridge, we pass those two structures. On the left, there was what looked like maybe 8 to 12 feet long, another debris trash pile that to me looked like it was construction debris.
There's a few piles that were there from one of the previous owners that we've been working to clear out.
I assume you have no problem if one condition, if we approve this, is that has to be removed.
Absolutely.
Or search for that part. Second, with the trailer, what is the condition of that?
I mean, it's not like a trailer you could throw on the road and drive. It's got a lock on it. It's not for use for the school.
Have you been inside it?
Yeah, we've walked
Does
inside of it.
Still have
It
a
has a
roof?
floor, it has a roof.
more worried about the roof and
Yes.
from the other direction. So you have a lock on it, and the plan would be to keep it locked.
Yeah,
or
it's
remove
not-
it, one of the two.
We're gonna remove it eventually. It's just another
So that would be a condition.
on the
It could
list.
be, yeah, right, the trailer stays locked when kids are on the property until it is removed, something along those lines.
Someone keeping track of all these conditions.
Yeah, but I'll probably lose my page, so.
well, the eight full-time and 7 part-time students. I think should be a condition.
I'm happy to change it to 8 students.
Is that what you?
I'm I don't know how it works, but I'm just throwing it out there that I'm more than happy to make changes to get to a comparable starting place, and if I want to grow or change things, to come back better prepared to meet what I need to be different than what you're comfortable approving. I don't know if it can work like that. I'm just,
We have businesses in town who come back periodically when things like this change.
Second sort of thing that I was seeing, to at least my layperson eye, is the running water was like a pretty wide area. It seemed to be wetland along the edges. It seemed like there was some pretty significant wetland as you come in the driveway on both sides of the driveway. By the like in what was this? The sun was setting over here by the north end. There was a lot of additional wetland up here. It didn't seem as like once you were past that and heading down those trails seemed a lot more open. But the Fish and Game letter to me didn't speak for whole lot because he talked about just the area immediately around the yard is how I read it, and is not a wetland scientist and focused primarily on, the existing trees, which is not sort of definitive of soil conditions.
I share that concern.
Yeah, if that person said, yes, this is definitely a wetland and this is a problem, I'd be like, okay, well, that sounds like a problem.
I'm not
But
saying-
if they say this isn't a wetland, I don't know.
Why do we
We'll
care
take
if
it,
things
fine.
are wetland if there's no building proposed? And well,
So
I can answer
Isn't
my
it
question,
so-
if there were 50 people, maybe that's an impact, but 15?
So part of this gets to what are the uses the students are gonna be doing?
Yeah.
And that's the piece, and I think everyone has sort of a different idea in their head, and why one of the things we asked about was some more specificity of what they're doing. Like gardening is an activity set. If it's limited to a specific area, it's easier to say gardening is not gonna impact. If the proposed playground is in one location, but if we don't sort of tease that out now, 15 kids, it's not 33 like it might have been before, but if they're using wheeled vehicles to move up and down the trails or off the trails, if they're, I'm having trouble sort of defining the scope of things, but we can talk through that. So I don't know that it's a deal breaker that we don't have a stamped plan. But that doesn't mean that we can't take into consideration and impose conditions about where specifically certain activities or most
Are the
activities.
kids be
should
riding in motorized vehicles?
no.
Okay, so they're pulling wagons. That's a wheeled vehicle, that's
Bicycles.
bicycles.
We don't
I don't think
intend
the
on
wagon is a vehicle.
biking.
Lawyers would disagree.
You did mention there's a golf cart and a
But-
sort of quad.
So we have for personal use a golf cart and a side by side. But
That was in the application material, that's why I was.
it wouldn't be used for the students. It was just more of like, if there's an emergency and we had to use them for something, like we have something, the ability to use it if we needed it for something, or if we had to carry out like one of the water tanks. We have a vehicle that we could easily access with and move.
I see. So my biggest concern with this is the lack of oversight and the ambiguity of what this is, because for example, I have to sign consent forms for my son to go into a motorized vehicle, even in the event of an emergency. Can your child be transported from one part of the school to the other part of the school because they're injured? I have to sign the document. I give approval for that. I have to give approvals for medications. I have to take a document from the state that says if an inspector comes, are we allowed to speak to your child? Are we allowed to speak to them in a group setting? Would you like to be present? None of that is here, and we're talking about children. That's my biggest concern. We don't have the means to do oversight for that as a town. And this is kids going without their parents on a consistent, regular basis.
So we do have a handful of waivers that have to be signed by students that have gone through our lawyer. For example, like to be near the water, we have a waiver.
Yes, that protects you, that doesn't.
I would share your concern about specifically where, showing where different things happen, where are the kids allowed to be and where are they not allowed to be. I also have a concern about railings on bridges. I would share your concern about fencing, but I think my biggest concern is the same as yours, it's oversight.
You have the right to deny an application based on concerns about the lack of posts.
Their safety.
I don't think on the oversight piece, but the reason that this is tricky and sort of frustrating for me, because I'm not in the education space, is that planning boards don't typically have to do this. If something is a school, it's a school, it's a daycare, it's a daycare. There are systems in place on the state level to make sure that they're in place. What this proposal, I mean, it's basically for a commercial use of 2 adults with the maximum of, I mean, currently, I mean, we can, work with some of this, a maximum of 15 students. And it's not a school, it's not gonna have DES oversight, they're gonna be using the property. I don't know where the sort of boundaries on that are, but there are some things that we can certainly do in terms of, right, like we talked, if there was debris, remove that. If we think you've got curtilage around the house that has the garden area in the front, those sort of woods roads that are pretty well developed in that sense going up to the yard. Those are areas that you can see pretty sleepy, kids can be there, there's not sort of near impact. And then maybe limit the extent to which some other areas, and I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here, but that's sort of how I see it. And a condition will be obviously, get all required state approvals. If we as lay people are just wrong and she is a daycare, our approval doesn't sort of waive that requirement for her to get a daycare. And if our requirement is, you need to, so I mean, like we'll talk to DES. You need to, go back and tell DES this many students, this many hours. This is my exact facility. Please confirm I do not need septic, and just maybe that's a follow-up communication and it's that exact information and we're good. Maybe it's not, but some of the state stuff, she'll have always that ongoing obligation.
So both you and Megan talked about the zoning board approval and what that approval is for. Looking at the documentation, which this also goes to the concern about oversight. Looking at the documentation, it seems to me the decision was made to approve because, partially at least, because there was the proposal included DES approval and DES oversight. Not DES, I'm sorry, I mean, the Department of Education. Recognition as an educational facility and oversight as and so it's a very different thing to approve something that does not have that.
Can you cherry pick if a child doesn't, goes, if it's 25 degrees out, you say don't go near the pond, and they do anyway, and you just like say your contract with the parents or whatever, decide we can't come back.
Yeah, we have that in writing. Basically, there's, we have like a system, you have a written warning, and if it happens a second time, it's basically like we have a family meeting at that point, and then a third strike, and you get pulled from the program. You have to be able to come when your name is called. Everybody has to stay together. If you don't follow like the rules that we have in place, then basically you can't come because we can't keep you safe. So like a student that isn't able to come when they're called, because students have different abilities and stuff, then they wouldn't be a good fit for the program.
Are you gonna screen the students for the program for other
Yeah.
sorts of things?
Alright, I'm gonna try to be a little cognizant of time, and there are some other people from the public. Does anyone have any problem if at this point we do the public comment portion now? In part because at least 3 of the people here in the public were at the sidewalk, so if they have concerns, they relate, we can factor them in now, and you guys can go home if you have nothing else after that. So, you have any problems with that? Alright. So at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Just a reminder to everyone, address your comment to the board. It's not an opportunity to interrogate the applicant. But if you raise concerns, make sure to us to ask follow-up questions. So I'll just sort of work my way around and see if anyone has any. So any on your end, any on your end.
I have a few.
Alright, what would you like to say?
First, I'm Kelly Short, I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, but I'm speaking from my personal observation because obviously the whole Conservation Commission was not out there looking at the property today. So in no particular order, these are questions that came to mind for me. Especially the large bridge that you can drive across has some apparent cracks at the surface level. So I don't know what its longevity is, and I just want to point out that any changes to either of the bridges looks to me like they would require wetlands permits because they have supports that affect the stream itself. In the area where the small excavator was working, near the big bridge and adjacent to the stream, I'm wondering how much total land disturbance is intended there and how close it will get to the stream, because we do have a setback for land disturbance. I'm wondering if there's any other clearing or dredging planned at all anywhere on the property, because dredging and filling could require a wetlands permit. On the question of the washroom facilities, if any tank if you intend to submerge any tank, like bury the water tank or bury the chamber for the composting toilets, if there is such a thing, you might require a subsurface permit from DES. And last, and this is by far the hardest because it's like there's no, I don't think there's clear direction from DES on this, but I would point out that if one of the educational activities is stream-based learning, like kids being in their wellies and in the stream, walking in and out of the stream up the bank, to be cognizant that, you know, a half dozen or 10 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds running up and down the stream can cause a lot of erosion, could be damaging species that are dependent on the wetlands. So I understand that you're an educational facility and assume that you are well versed in what would be best practices and what would be inappropriate, but I just wanted to point that out, that you know, that could be as disruptive of the stream as actually like a construction project. So something to be careful of. That's it.
Can I ask some questions?
Sure.
Because you have background, you're on a conservation commission, are there particular student educational activities that you could envision as being potentially problematic in wetlands? Or are you say, like, is there anything that comes to mind that you would actually be worried about that
Yeah.
students are doing?
The things that came to mind for me, especially like for if there's a vernal pool on the property and you wanted to show the kids what kind of creatures are living in a vernal pool in the spring and how they progress through their lifespan. It's just a very sensitive environment, so you know I'm sure there's a way to observe it, but just to be careful to not have every kid tromping right through it. And similarly with the stream itself, if they're going to be in there to look at plants or look for frogs or anything, or turtles, it's the same consideration, just to be aware of the level of sensitivity of that particular habitat and figure out how to show it to the kids and let them get some hands-on experience without having them trample it. But,
So if I can paraphrase that,
Yeah.
like the use of those areas would be okay, but it should be done carefully and in moderation, but it's not like there's a per se problem with having students in the wetland areas or stream areas ever.
I called DES this afternoon to ask them this kind of question because nowhere on their website doesn't say anything about educational activities in water. And the person I spoke to raised a concern that kids in and out of the water would be as disruptive as the kinds of activities that require a wetlands permit. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is a DES requirement for a wetlands permit to run an educational program that uses water resources. So, like I said, this is the hardest question and very as gray as some of the other questions.
This is relevant to what Kelly was saying, and you submitted, I don't know which phase of this was, you submitted a lot of photos of the property, and there was something, a kid splashing in, what you call the spring frog pond? Is that a vernal pool?
I was wondering.
Vernal pool is.
A vernal pool is a place, it's usually a little bit of a declivity in the land that in the spring fills up with melted snow, and it's a place where salamanders breed and other species that are need very specific habitat requirements, and they're sensitive areas. So that is kind of what put that picture, put that question into my mind of okay, maybe the kids should be outside the pond observing what's going on and not running through it.
If you get peepers, it's just thermal pool.
That's my entire property.
And I wish there was a simpler, this is what DES wants you to do, follow these rules and you'd be fine. So I'm just raising potential concerns.
Appreciate it, thank you.
I would like her to have the school and anything you can help educate her so that she can have it. I'm happy to have you educate her because it's a long process and I think she's done really well. And what she submitted and what she can do, so.
Are you in a butter?
Yes,
A regular and in butter,
yes.
dual role. Alright, Cal, anything from you? You're here technically.
Dan Bowman, I'm in the butter,
Can you just say your address too?
135 New Road.
Thank you very much.
I have concerns environmental that was brought up, liability for the town because there are so many unknowns. If something happens as a taxpayer, I'm on the hook. And then you got the bathroom facilities has been bugging me. There's no heat. I'm not sure that I don't believe that the kids are gonna use it when it's right around zero. And it's gonna start getting into the house because who wants to use an unheated outhouse when it's in single digits? So that puts a strain on any septic system. There's a lot of wetlands around, I'm in a butter. There's a stream that runs most of the year right between our properties from the road up, there's a little well.
You said you're 135, so you're south.
Yeah, right next door, if you're on the driveway, I'm on the right. And she's on the left,
So you're across the road from the new road?
no, same side.
Can you see her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are my big issues, is no heat in there, so realistically, how many little kids are gonna use an outhouse when it's 10, 15 degrees? And again, it's not quite as bad, but in the summer when it's 85, 90 degrees out, you run into the same issues. There's gotta be some kind of heat, cause whether it's a solar thing, but that's not gonna work in a lot of the winter when it's just overcast all the time. And if it's really cold, we get some pretty chilly nights around here. So then that system's not gonna work, and what's gonna happen with all the waste? And all the unknowns that have been brought up.
Alright. Anything further from anyone else? We have second shot at anyone. Anything further from you as well? Okay. Thanks for coming.
Yep, good night.
Are we planning on voting on the site plan tonight?
That is an open question. I have. I guess the two things I guess we would factor in is my understanding of sort of the two facts that are pertinent is that you have enrolled students and a teacher that are hoping to start 9/1. Is that right?
Yeah, it's technically a wait list. They're not technically enrolled.
And so on the one hand, the applicant has a need for a sooner decision. But on the other hand, my understanding is also that you had started soliciting students and taking more of these actions before applying for site plan review and had to be told by the town to come to site plan review,
Yes.
which I consider a sort of aggravating factor, so mitigating that you have a pressing need, but some of this is self-inflicted.
It was a misunderstanding on my part. I thought the site plan was for when we built the outdoor classroom, the raised classroom that we had proposed. I thought, because when I had talked about it, I didn't have like an actual blueprint of what we wanted to do for an outdoor classroom, so I thought the site plan was for when we build something. I didn't understand that it was for just to use the land as is.
And so the main reason I'm just putting those up is we're not obligated to rule for 60 days, it's sort of the statutory that we have to rule within 60 unless we have permission from you. But those are the factors that sort of weigh in the decision of can we decide it tonight, can we get through everything, and if it is, I mean, at least as I see it, the information we have on accepting rainwater from DES is not sufficient now, so there would have to be at a minimum a condition of, we need this exact thing from DES, which is, and we can talk, like if it's max students, max hours, how do I put it? The email to DES, I think you started with you said a small homeschool enrichment were the words that you used. Small is one of those words that means a different thing to everyone. It's much easier for us to deal in absolutes where, you tell DES is a maximum of this many physical bodies for this many hours a day. They deal in numbers, and they just do straight calculations a lot of time. This bedroom means this and this many gallons that your septic needs to hold, that kind of thing. So it may be that DES doesn't need to do an approval, but we at least need something with more specificity.
Well, either DES approves or DES says it doesn't
Exactly.
need to approve.
Right, so some of that doesn't have to necessarily be resolved that way, but it may trigger the approval not exactly needing a whole lot because she's got other permits that she needs.
I think that it's reasonable to put conditions on approval. We need a fence here, we need a letter from DES confirming this, we need a fire safety check, but when we're getting to us deciding and determining how she should structure her business, how many students there are, what activities they're doing, where they can and cannot go, I think that is the applicant's responsibility, and there are a lot of models, even in town. Look at Dewey, look at Petals and the Pines, very different models, both, doing nature-based things. I think that the number of conditions that would be required for me to be comfortable with this is unreasonable for us to be making those decisions for the applicant. We're not experts in that space.
Can you send a kid or do that cherry, whatever you call it, I call it cherry picking, if the child doesn't wanna, like Mr. Butter suggested over here, that if the child won't use the outhouse in the winter time, say, is that a condition that
Well, I'm sorry, you can't participate.
Yeah, we don't want anybody in our personal home.
So that's what I'm saying, that level of granularity, I don't think is our responsibility to determine.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, we get a more defined proposal, but this is what we have, and we have to either say that the proposal we have is just, it doesn't meet the standard, or we have to say that, you know, or this, the planning board process generally shouldn't be a yes, no. It should be more of a recursive give take until you find the right balance, because this is a use that she is allowed to have on the property. She has a special exception. So the starting point is she's allowed to do this. Our question is, how is she allowed to do it on the property, and can it be cited in a way that protects someone's interests?
Can you read the
So,
list of?
but I absolutely agree, it is much more difficult in this position where we are, you know, trying to propose certain things and we don't have as much of a concrete idea of the what, where, and when.
The fact of the matter is somebody should probably be regulating this, it's not us.
She has an approved use. The ZBA said, quote, "The approval was based on provided testimony, and if any changes are made, she is to return to the ZBA. Not a blanket approval for any educational activities."
Right, I mean, and we can,
I think
that's really a
more
ZBA
likely than
decision
not,
of,
we have to
does
pass
that-
it back to the ZBA.
and we can think that there is or not, and so regardless, we can, similar condition, which is,
Send her back.
this
to
is what we
ZBA.
approved, and they'll ask the ZBA chair, basically, does this fit within your special exception? And if they think not, they'll say, no, they have to come back for an amendment.
Right.
I think that gets back to no matter what, we had talked 30 days ago that, you know, an express condition, if we're not looking at the adequacy of the septic and the house, and the proposal is now concretely, no students will be allowed to use the house septic system. That needs to be an express condition, so we can,
Yes, but we've also heard that the septic will be dumped into the house septic,
which
The gray
is
one.
the gray water.
exactly part of, yeah. part
And
of
then the
this.
other one is, so if you empty the composting toilet, where do you empty?
At the point that it would be ready to be emptied, you can empty it outside.
Outside where?
It's considered organic material, so anywhere in the dirt, in a garden.
Well, I have a Clivus multrum and I know that when I empty it, it's not really, it's not something I would want my kids playing in.
Well, I have a moldering system, and when we dump it, it's soil, and they say don't put it in your garden where you're gonna grow root vegetables, and we don't,
I was thinking more of like a plant garden, I
but
would,
it's a plant
Put it-
garden.
yeah, in my vegetable garden I was gonna eat.
And you know right away whether it's, you can tell right away whether it's, you know, aged sufficiently. It's obvious.
And nothing would have to be dug into the ground, the system sits on the tank itself.
So. Yeah, I mean, my concern, tanks are a separate DS concern, they have different areas, but. One of the reasons I hate tanks is that you have to pump them regularly and that costs money, and people then take shortcuts, and I don't know that DS would be. Okay with learning that the plan would be take the gray water from one place and add it to a second septic, and maybe they would, but they probably want information about
I had.
your second set, and where I'm getting at is. No matter what, I think if we're getting to a conditional approval, it's gonna be that you have to list out and we can help walk you through it, exactly what the proposal is in terms of here's the total number of people, here's the exact facility. It has no heat for the winter as it currently stands, here's the exact, you know, amount of gallons we propose for hand washing station and the size of the holding tank, and we propose to take the gray water and dump it into the existing septic system. And here's what our existing septic. Do we need, do we need any approvals, and if so, what approvals? And that's gonna be the type of thing that's gonna prompt them to say, no, you know, you're good, that's fine for your proposed use, or yes, we need, maybe it's
I'd like to, I'm not gonna formally make a motion, but I think it's time for a motion to be made that we approve this and on the condition that, and then go through your list of those conditions. And so that we can make a full list of conditions and then potentially take a vote. Am I being
Disagree, I
premature?
think that there is not sufficient,
So-
insufficient.
Before we get, I guess, to that point, I think two of the big ones are, we should talk in terms of maximum number of students.
I thought
How
we
many,
did, yeah.
how many are 5 days a week, 9 hours a day? If there's not all of them, less, are there specific areas that we are, saying there should be more? And I apologize, let me kind of hand up for a while.
Yes, all of that. Two things. One, I feel like there's some questions from Kelly that we might wanna get answers from. And my other slightly related question is, I assume you have considered just having porta potties and porta potty service. Why not? Just out of curiosity.
Cause there were concerns about getting them pumped and stuff, and I was trying to address those concerns by finding a toilet that didn't have to be pumped, didn't have to be dumped, and was something that would not create wastewater or the need to pump. So that's why. And I was able to find a toilet that it's all in one. You treat it and it turns
I'm
into
all in
something that
favor of
can be.
composting toilets, to be clear. It just seems like you're taking harder route, and I was wondering why.
Cause there's questions about it being pumped.
Well, yeah, there's companies. Was questions from the ZBA?
I believe so.
I read through all the minutes, and the ZBA largely landed at issues like septic and traffic and parking. Like,
Yeah.
there's functionally enough room for those systems. The planning board will have to
Yeah.
figure out.
I read
whether
through the
they're-
ZBA minutes, I didn't recall seeing anything about porta potties specifically, so it's,
I'm happy to use a porta potty. The toilets are $2,000 each, so
getting the porta potties pumped is not free either.
No.
but
but
we run a porta potty at the barn at my place.
What is the max occupancy of the year?
I believe it's 16. But it was so that number came from the yurt company,
Uh-huh.
but he said it would have to go through the town and the town would give their own number.
So
But Chief Gamache said he wouldn't do that until it was approved, and at that point, then he would come out and we would go through
do you intend having furniture in the year?
minimal, but yes.
Like tables, chairs?
A couple small tables to do art projects, foldable tables that will collapse and go to the side.
Okay, and for children that are there full days, what about like a nap time, will there be nap spaces?
No, it's mostly older kids,
What is the
like
age
five
range?
and up.
Okay, so it's
So,
up to you.
yeah, like, 5 kindergarten, 5 in that hour. Where will they put their stuff? Cause I know that you have the drop off, but then presumably they would carry their stuff into the yurt. So the yurt would have some minimal furniture storage area for them
hooks.
to put their stuff.
Hooks for the backpacks.
And that would presumably affect occupancy to have those things, so what is the maximum you're asking, 15? Plus the 2 staff is already exceeding what the company says that you're,
Plus 2 other kids.
Plus,
I think that those children should be included in the.
Oh, I agree, I just think we need to be clear on that.
The thought behind if there were, so 8 students would be the full day, and the thought behind it being able to have a few more is to have like an afternoon program with older kids so that my son has something to do, was the thought behind it. And I wanted to make sure those numbers reflected the truth of maximum kids on property at one time.
So when you say 8 full-time spots, do you mean full-time as in all those hours for 5 days, or do you mean kids who
The
for 2 to
most-
3 days a week will come for?
The most amount of
100%?
students we would have on the property at one time would be 8. So some of those kids might, so like on the 8 students that come on Monday, it might be different students on Tuesday, but it would still be a maximum of 8 students.
So the maximum is 8, not 15.
So we would like to, we asked for growth room. So if we wanted to host like an afternoon program for older kids, we're not exceeding 8 students on the property. So we could have like an art program where kids might get dropped off for a couple hours, or maybe it's with parents and we do art in the woods and we draw and have more kids. But the main class of the 8 students is the full day. The extra kids wouldn't be full day extra kids. It's just asking the ability to have more than 8 on the grounds to offer another program.
So
Is
there
that-
might be 15 kids at one time,
Outside.
sometime.
I think that's what we have to plan for the maximum there.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I know that you say the afternoon kids would be 15 outside, but weather is weather, they're gonna need a place to be warm or a place to go in, so then you were beyond the capacity of your, without
So,
any furniture, without anything, just as.
anything that is above the 8 students would be like a seasonal program, is the thought behind it. Like, so things are set up in 8 weeks. So in the winter, we're not gonna be running as many programs and activities because we're limited to what we can do in the winter. Whereas like in the spring, it's easier to have more kids on property because there's 24 acres and we can be outside. So I
And
don't,
I get that from our perspective, if
I
we're
don't-
approving 15, you could put 50, we can't.
And there's a thunderstorm and everyone has to get in, like
We can't approve, cause we can't track, okay, you can have 8 in this season and 50, if we say the max is 15, you could have 15 plus kids in that year. In the winter, there's nothing that we could know about, do about, there's nothing we do about that, cause that's your max that we approved. We can't approve by season.
I understand, I intend to operate in good faith, and I understand that you guys still have your side, so I'm just trying.
When the place burns down and there's 20 kids there, her insurance isn't gonna cover it. If we've only approved 15. You know that,
When,
oh, excuse me, yeah.
jeez.
Yeah. I'm a lawyer, assume the best.
So at the end of the day,
so-
we can approve you for a maximum number of kids. One maximum number, and that has to be a
Okay.
number that can safely be on the property in winter, because we have to do it.
And so I guess there's 2 things we can do. We can suggest a starting number that is less than 15 in parks. We've got the issue of you're talking about purely other kids, but you are proposing uses of the property, these facilities, which would include your kids. So we need sort of a maximum that can use the yurt and be part of the program and they factor in there. And then that will be subject to the fire chief confirming that the occupancy of the yurt, which is currently the only shelter that is available to those students, is sufficient for whatever the maximum is.
Students and teachers.
For students and staff and, well, I should say not just students, but participants, whether they are
So
other
the number
neighbors'
of
children
people.
or not, yes.
So if there's an approval with a conditional approval, the condition would say the maximum number is subject to the fire chief's.
Maximum of X or the maximum allowed by the fire chief, whichever is lower.
Right.
I think as a starting point, what we would be approving is not a number, and to help us just orient, a number of students plus educators, regardless of source, whether they start on the property or come from outside of the property. If that's the 15 number, and the 15 includes teachers and would include your
Myself, my
children,
kids.
that would be at least within representation of the yard's max occupancy as a starting point. That makes sense, so
Yeah, I mean, it seems unrealistic that you
technically that's 10
put more.
or 9 other people's children plus a teacher, plus 4 from her. Where was my next question? Just the proposal, I mean, part of the thing is we've heard that they're offering 2 to 3 day slots and 2-day options, 3-day options, and 5-day options. We could also say, you know, no more than, if that number is 13 students, no more than 5 we're doing in 5 days, no more than this many they're doing in 3 days, or something like that to sort of get the average lower than 15 if we wanted to propose. But that gets like more complicated and it's.
I feel like it's complicated both for us to like determine an appropriate number and also for her to.
I'm happy to change it to 8, and if I want to expand, come back with more sufficient facility capabilities.
And that would be after the fire chief probably deems a number, and you would know the, you would know the number.
And we're gonna eight's actually pretty close to what your proposal would be anyway, if you include 2
Well, I'm just
educators
saying,
and
like-
4, your 4 students that puts you 4 teams like 8, so like it's.
Okay,
Yeah, right,
yes.
so, but we would say basically, maximum of 13 students and 2 educators, or 15 combined students and educators is probably a better way to be flexible.
I
in
think
case-
that's too many. If the max capacity of an empty year is 16, and they are putting in
So-
tables and chairs.
That's on the fire.
Yeah, and I would expect that if fire is concerned, that they will absolutely flag, that's like one of their favorite things to flag. And so they would write
And
this from us that the maximum, you know, sort of program participants, including both students and teachers, is 15, or the maximum occupancy of the yard that's determined by the fire chief, whichever is lower.
And my guess is you're gonna have to post that number next to the door.
Can
Can
we
I ask one
require
question about that?
that,
After the installs.
can we require that the year be furnished before it is checked for occupancy?
I think they do that automatically.
It
I
has to be.
believe they do.
Yeah, I mean, and administration,
That's my
I'll have Cal
understanding as
can
well, is I
certainly
have to
flag it,
have
make sure
it
that.
the way it's gonna look before he comes.
Okay, keep going.
There was a question from the butter, that is on hold.
Yeah, we're not specifically in public comment, but do you have any problem if I?
I don't mind.
Yeah,
When you're talking about maximum numbers, and you're talking about running maybe an afternoon program, if there's some overlap, you have to take that into consideration. Because accidents very often happen at the most inopportune time, so you might have 17, 18 people there instead of if the maximum is 50.
yeah, I
And
think,
that's just something to keep in mind.
Can I address you guys on that?
yeah, you may. I was thinking
The
about-
before and after school program is intended for the kids that are coming. So we don't, students don't have to sign up for the full day. They can come a half day or or a full day. So if working families can't come at 3, there was talks of offering to like 4:15 or something when families could arrive, but it would still be for like students on
I thought
Site.
the afternoon program was for students that weren't there during the day.
that
So
are
meaning
there.
that like if 4 of those 8 were there for 8 hours, that 4 more could come for 2 hours in the day, for whatever your total number is. But
So
I think we can get around it just by saying a maximum of this number of daily students and educators.
At any one time.
Not at any one time, I'd say per day, meaning if it's at any point in the day, you don't have any issues of people coming and going and having overlap.
Well, let's say you have 30 kids sign up for 1 hour each. And so over the course of the day, there's 30 kids, but at any one time, there might be many fewer than that.
So, we really only care about how many kids are there at one time, don't we, for the,
Not, because we also, I mean, like, traffic and parking and the logistics, I mean, if you sort of simplify it, I mean, I think my understanding is they're gonna have a more developed site plan, and if this gets off the ground for this first year, to come back and say, we really want these facilities for this bigger number, but we can just say a max of 15 daily students and educators,
is that okay?
which is.
Yeah, and I'm happy to get rid of the before and after school program right now. We're not even ready to open that. Like I said, I was trying to present something that I could grow into. I didn't I don't understand how this works. I'm kind of learning as we go. So if that's a concern, is kids in the afternoon and morning, like I'm really just happy to just start with something.
Yeah, I think this language is saying 50. So like, if you have 3 who come for just the first half and 9 who come for the second half, that's 12 for the day. Even though there's not 12 at one point in time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then it doesn't really matter whether they're coming for morning or art in the middle of the day or later. There's sort of no risk with that. It's a more restrictive number, but it
I'm
helps
happy
us
with
make
that.
sure that we don't have to look at other concerns like traffic coming and going and whether there's safe drop-off points and where kids actually in the
Well,
that kind of
and
stuff.
also if our approved cap, like, if we say you can have a maximum of 15 students and staff over the course of the day, and then, like, even if the fire inspector is like, not that many, that still gives a little bit of flexibility for if people are coming in at different spots. So like the maximum capacity at any one time is actually 12, because that's what the fire inspector says. But we've said 15 daily students, which means that like if there's some amount of like crossing with people, it's not going to like overtax the route. This is kind of theoretical.
Alright. On, so I'm gonna sort of walk backwards from max 15. One of the reasons I thought it was helpful to have Kelly here and get to ask that question is, well, if I guess children can be in wetlands and it's not sort of a per se harm, it's not the kind of thing that we would say is addition that like you can't use the wetlands, and that doesn't really make sense because people do use wetlands. If we wanted, I think it's still probably fair to just say, you know, to use reasonable efforts to ensure educational activities don't damage wetlands and vernal pools or something like that. It's not gonna be super binding. I hope and assume that you will use best efforts to protect those areas, but it's not it maybe doesn't matter as much in terms of the location of the wetlands, based on at least that information, and us not having specifically delineated wetlands for the type of use that's proposed. Certainly it would still be no land disturbing activities and no construction in the wetlands and setbacks. Which would, yeah,
Is
for sure,
there
setbacks.
construction currently going on right next to a pond?
So the
How close is that playground?
the land disturbing section, like our the setback that we proposed was 15 feet, and
She said she was removing debris from it.
right,
Yeah, that was.
Constructing a playground.
well,
The-
afterwards,
the
it started with removing.
Machine
rocks
isn't
and
to
logs.
construct the playground. In between those two rocks was a big pile of brush, and when we started pulling the brush out, underneath the brush, it was filled with trash and all those rocks. So we had to get the machine to pull the trash out and the rocks out, and we just, as we pulled the rocks out, lined them up for now.
What kind of trash was it?
Piping, like construction debris, cans, cords, a suitcase, like literal
Trash.
dumping
Trash.
zone.
Anything like old diesel cans or oil?
No,
or
nothing
anything
like that, just like
in the circle?
construction debris and bags of literal trash and trees growing up through it.
Cute.
Yeah.
So anyway, Josh, to your point, I think the list, at least so far, would be the trailer stays locked while the property is in use, unless and until the trailer is removed. The reasonable efforts regarding wetland impact, use of the house facilities, I'm not saying that the best, but using the house as septic is not permitted.
Does that include for the gray water dumping and
That's strictly just on the house piece. On the DES side, what I talked about, I don't have it written down, but basically that you would need to write to DES and we'd have to see written, which is this is the maximum number of students and educators who would be using this exact facility, which does or doesn't have heat. This is the the information on the hand pumping station, and our proposal is how we're gonna dispose of the gray water. You put all that information in one, and then if DES responds to that, no, we do not need an approval for that. I think that meets the commission, and if they do, it's obtain any required DES approvals. So that was working, and our certainty is that by more specifically laying it out, that we know it's not just them maybe misunderstanding what small means, or maybe not misunderstanding what small means. And then max 15 daily students plus educators, or the maximum occupancy of the yurt is determined by the fire chief, whichever is lower.
15 plus educators or including educators?
Daily combined students and educators. Yeah, I guess we'll use good language at some point, we'll clean this up so it doesn't sound like you can have 15 educators and 15 students.
Can we say children instead of students? This is inclusive of her children that are participating.
And
Max people on property or
well, you don't want. This is really about using your other facilities. I assume if your husband is home in the house, it's not somebody's part of it, but what we could say is participants.
Yeah, participants.
Yeah, participants and staff would be
And
general language.
Staff, I mean, it could be people there who are teachers or.
Yeah, alright, participants and staff, or whatever the max occupancy or certificate of occupancy for the yurt, which will sort of build into that. Removal of the debris. You know what I'm referring to with that one, right? I would describe it as located to the northwest of the yurt.
And then
just
you
that
have
trailer,
similar
right?
dump piles that might exist in areas we did.
I think that's the last one. There was quite a few, but I think that's the last one to get to.
I think I'd like as a condition if possible, that the proprietor has an ability to send home students who won't comply with all this stuff. Which she does, but
I don't, we need to give her permission to send home people. If someone is not using the property, like she's allowing someone to use the property in violation, that's a violation by her.
She can
allow-
refuse
She's
service.
responsible for them.
Right,
okay.
but we probably need something more general, which is continue to maintain all areas of the property that are used by program participants and staff in a safe, or I'm missing the language at the end,
Safe
but
and sanitary.
basically, right, you have a working farm, sometimes chicken fences get moved, there's other farm debris or things that are just not safe for children, so something to the effect of an ongoing obligation that the areas you are allowing participants to be need to continue to be safe for the people using them.
Okay.
And that would be, if 5 years from now, code enforcement gets a complaint because there's a bunch of new old farm equipment or old fences or things that are creating a hazard, the town at least there's a condition here that you are not keeping it safe and they can do something. One second. that sort of gets to the issue of the pond, and if it's sort of unsafe to not have fencing, it's on the town side in terms of town liability, she's required to make sure that it's safe and that they are supervising children and making sure they're safe, and same with the trails and the other piece.
But I don't think we should require
Kelly-
fencing.
I don't think
That's
we
safe
require,
design.
but it may be that if that's like what's commercially required, or when insurance
Yeah.
says that,
Yeah.
she has an obligation
A
to
pool.
If she gets to the point of getting like a full educational facility license, they
Right.
might at that point.
The pool piece is sort of an attractive nuisance for not even invited guests
Right,
coming
not
onto the property to
invited,
use,
yeah.
and we don't require people at ponds and lakes to have fencing.
Bridge
One
railing.
more. Bridge was where I was going next.
And Kelly mentioned that changing those bridges might require permitting.
Yeah, and that would happen sort of regardless, we don't
Yeah.
necessarily need a condition there. What I'm sort of separately wondering is whether, we say something effective of, participants and staff can only use the bridges as like walking, like something to the extent that, they can't drive trucks or something.
But she's gonna be
That's
driving her
right
4x4 to empty the gray water over that bridge, but the bridge looked sufficient for that. I don't wanna drive a cement mixer over it.
And so that maybe just fits under maintain all areas of the
Yeah.
property used by participants and staff in a safe manner. Obviously, we can have trouble walking over it, but. Where's your current description in terms of hours? For one day?
9 to 3.
9 to 3 is sort of the.
With potential for 3 to 5:30.
Right,
Seven.
and so she'd asked us,
7 to 9.
so we should just make it clear what hours we're approving, which is,
What time's the elementary school open? Earlier than 9 is supposed.
it's like
I
8
think
to 10.
it's-
Yeah.
I thought it was 8:40, but I could be wrong.
I think 8:10 is when I was dropping off.
Oh,
And I'm fine
particularly
with,
have an issue with before and after care.
I don't
Have you heard
either.
any objections from the abutters on that?
I don't either, I just think we just need to just
Yeah.
firm up, maximum program hours are this to this, and we
Yeah.
just put that in. So
Yes,
you wanna
I
just
think that's
repeat the
I also think we should be like
7 to 5:30,
on the generous side with that in
Yeah.
case of,
and her proposal
minor
is
modifications.
7 to 5:30.
Yeah, that's
If you could, that's a minimum, maximum, but that also helps protect neighbors that there are not
Right.
educational activities happening before 7 or after 5:30, does that
Absolutely.
work on your end? No. Oops. Program hours limited to 7 AM to 5:30 PM on weekdays.
Is that good weekdays?
Yeah, there's nothing for the weekends.
Alright,
You don't plan any lighting, do you?
Lighting?
Lighting.
No.
are you proposing a sign?
No. I'll come back if I want to put a sign.
COAP, Board of Selectmen,
I mean, we could, if you'll allow it, I'll put it in there. I mean, I don't have intentions on putting a sign anytime
there's a
soon.
sign, where is it in
It's
here?
little,
There
it's like
was-
the
It's-
real
I
estate
gave an
agent
example
sign.
of if we were to put a sign,
Right.
the idea of what it may look like.
Yeah.
Okay, where was the, cause I think those dimensions weren't,
I think that's an older one.
We have a sign ordinance
but
that puts the
There's
maximum
certain, it
size.
has to be a certain distance from the road, it can't be certain size, there's requirements about the
One-
lighting.
Yeah,
If we were to put a sign, we would follow those rules.
I think we
but we could say no more than one business sign, which must comply with zoning ordinance.
probably should require clearly marked from both directions road numbers for emergency services
Three
purposes.
MTs.
It might technically be legally required anyways, but definitely should be required here.
A problem. I don't know, it sort of as an express. I would put as a condition, which is,
Maximum,
I would just
is the
say-
sign compliant with the sign ordinance.
I said no, well, for the sign piece, I said no more than one business sign which must comply with the zoning.
I'm just
Yeah.
talking about road numbers.
But in terms of the road numbers, is there language or can we just, ask to sort of confirm? I'm maybe not that worried about them finding it the same way that they're gonna use a GPS and,
The one next to me, near on 132, there's only one number on one side of the mailbox.
Yeah.
I'm very confident of that. I don't think it's a,
Mine has one side, if you're coming from
I-
6.
but this is it's like a daycare. I mean, it's,
right, and I may be more concerned it's like a business where people come like retail that they're not expecting and they're looking for it, but
Okay,
after the first time,
I'm worried about
participants aren't gonna
emergency
be.
services and
turned
that.
around.
Yeah, I'm worried about the EMTs.
I do have a question
Not
about
worried
that.
about the parents.
If we're allowing till 5:30 in the dead of winter, there's no lighting in the parking lot, there's no lighting in the walkway for the kids to be heard, other than a string lights there.
We have solar lighting, a string light, and then on the ground there was all solar lighting out to the yurt, and on that lean-to there's solar lighting. I thought you were talking about like putting electrical wires in. We have solar lighting out there.
Does it sufficiently light the parking area and the entire walkway from where the children will be to the?
It's pretty bright and straight all the way from the top of the hill where our house is, all the way down the hill, over the bridge, across the tree line
I
on
mean,
the,
if you already got it, then you should have an issue with it being a condition
Yeah.
that the walkways
Well,
are lit.
I'll put it this way, normally the lighting conditions are like, must have cut lighting and X and X, but if they're not proposing it, it's more that if you end up wanting more substantial lighting than currently
We
is
have
on the
to
property,
ask.
you'd have to come back, cause that does end up being one where a butters have a
if lights
pretty
too
valid
bright
concern
and it
with what they're
bothers
gonna be
them.
seeing.
Keep them down.
Right,
Yeah, there's dark skies.
okay, but current proposal will be what you have on the property now and no new proposed lighting, so it won't be a condition, but she's limited to what she's described and that'll be in the minutes.
Can I go back to the bridge railing again? Kids
Yes.
horse around on the king of the bridge. And
You-
somebody's gonna get pushed off.
Absolutely.
So I would request those railings.
I consider it water education.
It's not water education in that stream, it's rock education.
Yeah.
School of Rock is not what we're.
Maybe just
I
to
did
sort
see you
of shortcut
stumble.
some discussion on that, are you open to putting railings on both bridges as a
Yeah, we're already working with New Hampshire Fish and Game. We put in a few proposals for grants to get the larger bridge. It was a recommendation that he had made and he's been helping me with. He recommended something that goes over the water so it doesn't obstruct the waterway and it's better for the environment. And at
Right.
that point, that would also have railings. So we are in the process of getting a grant for that. I know at that point, if we're approved, the grant, there's already a condition that we come
So-
here and we get approval with the town. But I am happy to put railings as is on that bridge.
Okay, and that's the part I wanted to clarify.
I just
If
wanted
you're agreeing
to
to that
say that
condition,
I-
it's not a, in the
Yes,
future if the bridge
yes,
is
sorry.
changed, it's you'd be
Yes.
agreeing to
Yes.
railings before children are
Yes,
coming on the property,
Yes,
correct?
I just wanted to acknowledge that I understand it's not the ideal bridge, but
Okay.
yes,
So
sorry.
if you're open to that, is that, we can put in,
Safety railings.
safety railings.
Would I work with Chief Gamache on the design of those? Would I have to get proposed, like if I'm gonna have to put a post in the ground, would I have to propose that to you guys to do it, or is this approval to do what I need to
No,
make it
this will
safe?
just require you and sort
Okay.
of, you have to put up safe ones, we're not doing sort of
Okay.
engineering review for railings.
Okay,
There is code that says they have to be a certain,
it's gonna be a
3
certain
inches, I
height,
think.
yeah,
and if you're to put a post into the stream bed, then you'd be into DES, but
But they can go
You can
front and back.
avoid that.
Okay. I was gonna run through that initial list again, so we just flag if we missed anything else, but we talked about what we saw on the sidewalk, wetlands. The debris, uses, what and where, which we have some more definition and in particular sort of. Maximum in terms of students, winter heat, there's fire, that's obviously gonna have to get approved by the chief that the wood stove is safe for that space and sufficient. Septic will be the condition, getting that information from DES. Same with gray water, same with emptying gray water in the existing septic. Max students, max hours, signage, fencing, railing on bridges. And then the additional ones that we added in are there.
Delineation of boundaries of where children can and cannot go? Or are they just free to go?
Well, I
They
mean,
have to stay with a teacher at all times. There's not times where they can just, like, on the playground, if we're here, or if we're in the garden, everyone needs to stay in the garden. If they're like, they can't just wander off or go off on their own. There's not like free time where they can just roam the whole property
we could just say something as just like participants must be supervised.
at all times.
Would we want to put something in where if there is some kind of significant issue with the wastewater management, that a reasonable alternative would be a properly maintained portable toilet?
So,
Like,
I interpret the condition as basically that, which is they do their proposal, and if DES says no, like you would need a permit for that. If she gets approval for a individual sewage disposal system, like that's the approval that would sort of come back and maybe they work with the town, does this meet the condition, but I don't know that we need to specify if the exact thing when you first go to DES doesn't work, it's
shouldn't need a permit for a portable.
Well, you get either DS,
they're
either gonna
considered-
waive or approve.
right, and so what DES would say is, you know, in this proposal is sufficient, and you don't need.
If it's not necessary, it's not necessary. I'm just thinking, like, if it does become an issue, it seems like a really obvious, even if it's a temporary solution for her to deal with the sanitation would be a portable toilet.
So, and we just say, from an condition, and again, it's bad, because I didn't write it out, but, septic and, sanitation facilities, including, lavatories and hand washing, must comply with state DES regulations. And the way we are determining that she's meeting that condition is her listing that exact information to DES.
I'd wanna either see an approval or DES saying approval's not necessary. And is that something DES is likely to put on writing?
Yes.
We require that the washer be heated.
The reason I sort of did this is I don't have the expertise to know, I guess,
I mean,
what,
we know that water freezes, maybe the compost toilets can work, but the hand washing station is just water sitting out all day.
Maintained above 32 degrees, maintained above 40 degrees.
I don't have a good answer.
If it gets DES approval or waiver, what more can we ask for?
That the water not be
Someday with that thing, they're gonna, well, they're not gonna water,
Yeah.
stays frozen, right? Frozen.
I'm happy to agree to do what I need to do to always have a hand washing station that is not frozen and works, and if that means we have to put heating in, I'm happy to do that.
I guess we could say something like, you know, the participants and staff can only do activities if there are sufficient or working toilets and sinks during times when there are working toilets and sinks, something to that effect. sort of puts it on, if everything stops working, you have to stop operating kind of situation.
Yeah, but if she wanted to put like, you know, a portable heater in that, you know, toilet house or something like that, would then become like a fire code issue, so.
Is there power out there?
We have a generator and a solar system, but there's
Oh,
not like
that's right, there was
electrical
a
power,
generator behind the wash house.
which can also be charged at the house, like in the wintertime when it's shadier. I know that was mentioned. And it
Or
lasts a few
really, you know,
days.
the sneaker way where you just bring hot water out to the 5 gallon bucket.
Also, there's some drinking water.
We have a bubbler inside the yurt.
Where is that water coming
Oh, the bottled water bubbler.
Yeah. The big
Like,
five
the
gallon
big 5
things
gallon
from?
plastic bottles.
with a spout and
It's
then
not
it
what I would
holds
call
two
it
underneath.
but I
Yeah,
know
okay,
what you
yeah,
mean.
Oh.
I was like, I thought it was like the
Yeah,
one.
it's a-
No, it's like a little
Is that in the,
tip spout. Did you go in and see it?
No, but
No.
I know what you're talking about, it's just a bubbler
should
to
be
me
in
as a
the-
water fountain.
Well,
Oh, like on the wall.
site plan somewhere,
But
if there's
put it in,
water
it's clear that it's not running water.
I don't know. Everyone's got water bottles now.
No, on demand.
Oh,
I know it's not necessarily a condition, but more of a clarification of the proposed use, which is no running water.
Well, I think the Megan's question is more about that the kids should have access to clean drinking water.
I mean, a 7 to 5:30,
Yeah.
my son's filling up that water bottle at his school, at least. Especially if you're running around playing outside in snowsuits and things.
Especially in the summer.
Yeah, a bottled water dispenser is a reasonable solution.
Then
So it
it's-
takes up more footprint.
it just-
They're probably gonna go through a lot of bottled water, but that's.
Well, they have those, you buy them in like 10 gallon bucket, you know,
We have
cans or something.
5 gallon ones. We've got 6 of them. We keep 6 on, or the plan is to keep 6 on rotation, and it's an upright thing, like that. And then the top one, it sits on a thing and it's got a spout, and then underneath it fits 2 extra ones, so it's 15 gallons. And that's what we plan to use.
Alright. Could we use something like participants must have access to drinking water and working toilets and sinks, and you know, the use cannot continue many times when they don't. Something like that, does that work?
That works for me.
Yeah.
That's gonna be so hard for me to read all these back. I'm like scribbling in a circle. But it feels productive. Others. What to say we're not talking about. Okay. I'm gonna read these again. And you may have to bear with me because there's a couple that are not fully written out, and I'll say them, and I'm sure it'll tell me if I need to slow down. And then once we have them read out, we just ask for a motion subject to the listed conditions. And we can go from there.
We talked about sending it back for final approval to the ZBA.
Right, sorry, hold on.
Just turn your paper at 90 degrees and write crosswise.
No,
That's
I
fine.
can't.
That's a
Alright.
normal thing to do.
Alright, let my brain start to break, is how we.
Pending
Right,
That's what's
ZBA
9:15.
final approval of
It's 9:15.
revised. Yes.
ZBA confirmation that existing special exception doesn't need to be amended.
Well, or appropriate amendment. Or would it have to come back to us again at that point? Like if they were like, yeah, she does need an amendment,
Yeah, that's the other half that I was trying to.
And then it came back to us to have the groundwork for it.
Yeah, well, at a certain point, we just go back and forth into eternity.
Meets or amended SE. So you need confirmation that it meets the special exception or obtain amended SE. Alright,
Last point is, can we make it clear that this is approval for the Wild Kid nonprofit, not the My Village LLC that was submitted to Department of Education as a non-public school.
What's the name of it?
so I think maybe
Yeah,
the way to sort of loop that in, because I don't necessarily personally care as much about the names, but the point which is there is
Unregulated,
that
but
activities must be permitted by say something like all applicable Department of Education or federal educational permits or requirements or something like that. So
So
if for activity fits outside, that's fine, but if it's not and you don't necessarily know that, that's so must obtain all required state, federal approvals.
And the big factor, is you can't market it as a school without getting the DES, no, not DES, Department of
Education.
Including
approval.
Any applicable from Department of Education, we must call that, doesn't matter. Must obtain all required state and federal approvals, including any applicable from Department of Education.
You say obtain and maintain, because if they suddenly regulate this kind of thing and get rid of this gray area.
Oh, like that.
Well, I don't know if you want to specify Department of Education, because I think daycare, if it happens to be that, is up to
DHHS. Yeah.
State and federal.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that, as
That's
this
right.
must,
I'm not actually 100% certain that this doesn't fall under some of DHHS's daycare regulations, it kind of looks like it does to me, but,
so must obtain
my
and maintain
responsibility is not in keeping DHHS.
any required state and federal approvals. Okay.
You're local.
What?
You're local.
I think that's us.
that's.
And well, that's the board of selectmen and the code enforcement, alright.
Alright.
So the state.
That was usually worded, okay, we'll say
Should we just
local.
go to the next page?
Don't look at my paper, it's got stuff on it, it would have been harder to like flip between two pages.
Oh,
Alright.
I've kept the list of them, even if they're not written, with all the.
Alright. The order of these is not gonna make a ton of sense, but I'm gonna read them out and we'll go from there. The trailer has to stay locked while the property is in use. Must use reasonable efforts to ensure educational activities do not damage wetlands and vernal pools. Participants and staff are not allowed to use the septic toilet and sink and septic of the house, what am I saying here?
Yeah.
Of the primary residence.
except to dispose of gray water?
No, that's addressed in the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the. Show that. Third one makes sense, or do I need to read that one again?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank
Okay.
you.
Must obtain all applicable DES permits for toilets and sinks and disposal of gray water. Or provide confirmation that the exact proposed facilities
Comply.
don't require a permit, comply with these
Yeah.
regulations. Max of 15 daily combined participants and staff, or the max occupancy of the yurt as determined by the fire chief, whichever is lower.
To go back to number 4, the DES waivers.
Yeah.
That should apply to the gray water, hand washing, and toilets.
That's what
I
he said.
said
Okay,
that
got all
both
three of it.
sinks and gray water.
Okay.
Yeah, I started using different words as I got further. Most would be separate, maybe we can cut number 6, which is the certificate of occupancy is under state, federal levels, we'll cut that one. 7, we need to remove the debris located to the northwest of the yurt for you. Lost the way. Maintain all areas of the property used by participants and staff in a safe manner. Program hours are limited to 7 AM to 5 PM on weekdays.
Can we say safe and sanitary? Is that the same thing?
If you prefer sanitary, I'm fine with that, I'm fine with just safe, which is actually it's pretty broad. Alright. Should,
I would include safe and sanitary.
alright. Let me know your show. Alright. No more than one business sign which must comply with the zoning ordinance. Install safety railings for the bridges. Participants must be supervised at all times. Participant staff must have access to drinking water and working toilets and sinks, and no use of the property during any times that they do not.
Might phrase that as toilets and hand washing facilities. Rather than sinks.
Yeah, and washing facility. Could be.
You can say.
Sure, can you just make a note that like, there's a prior condition use sink that anytime we said sink, it will change for the condition to say sink or hand washing facility and just list all 3. To the extent they wanna. No. Running water to the yurts.
Do we even have to specify that?
It's more that it wasn't entirely, it wasn't mentioned in here, so if it's not mentioned somewhere in the application, it's sort of. it
Well,
would
just
require-
because adding running water to the yurt would require a pretty significant undertaking, including a whole bunch of.
It would include septic.
So,
Yes, purposes.
and where I'm kind of going with that one is if she comes back in a year and the proposal's for 20, but suddenly we realize we want a real septic and water, that's
Alright.
clearly in excess.
If it feels necessary.
I don't know at this point if it's necessary, but
Honestly,
I think it
you don't have
doesn't,
to
it
dig a
doesn't
hole
hurt,
under the stream,
it
like
doesn't
seem
hurt
like
to
it's
not
gonna
have
happen.
it, I think is where I'm going. I just had one word there, so I don't know what that means. ZBA confirmation that as approved, site plan meets the special exception or obtain an amendment. Or obtain an amended special exception, so what it should end with. Obtain and maintain all required federal, state, and local approvals.
The only thing you missed in my list is, that the heating system or wood stove has to be approved by the fire. I mean,
That would be a local approval.
that is a local.
I
approval, but-
originally had certificate of occupancy, which would look at that exact issue, and then I cut back, so it's local approval.
Okay.
But we can just, to make it explicit, sort of on those conditions.
Yeah, it involves fire.
The must obtain a certificate of occupancy and confirm that or have the fire chief confirm that the proposed heating system for the yurt is safe.
Did I miss the bridge?
Yes,
It's there.
I mean,
Bridge
you have it on
railings.
your list?
I mean, I did say that one.
You
You
did.
did, that's what.
Bridge
I
railings,
must
but
have
you know.
missed
Bridge railings, but
You
not,
missed it, you
not
did.
separate bridge.
I move that we approve this with those conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Any discussion on the proposed motion? I guess the piece that I will add and just sort of make it clear is that with these conditions, the way it works, and part of the reason I want to be very clear here, because you put up the pad and the yard and you built the structure for the toilet, so this is the use, having children come to the property and another educator cannot start until all of these conditions are met. So, there's the ongoing ones which will apply, but the rain's gonna go up, the debris is gonna get moved, the
Chief
DES
Gamache
piece
has
is
to
gonna,
come
all
out.
of that is gonna happen before the first day that the kids show up, okay? But otherwise, I think I'm good on mine. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All
I
opposed?
abstain.
Nay.
I'm gonna say too.
A minute.
Alright.
Alright, so,
We'll just go from.
Thank you.
So, Janice?
Yes.
Josh? Megan?
No.
Brendan, yay.
Abstain.
Yeah.
Logan?
Abstain.
That's 4 out of 7.
So I recently learned there's a Supreme Court case says abstentions don't count towards voting, you just, of the people who vote, you need a majority.
It's good to know.
In each case, it's the same.
So. The last piece, which I sort of missed on that, but the site plan, which is the document that you have there, the conditions will need to be added to that plan.
And they should be right on the plan.
Because you will have to record it, you'll have to work with the town to be able to record it. But all the conditions will be specifically spelled out and listed on this document, so that when it is recorded, anyone sort of in perpetuity who needs to look this up, or any neighbors who wanna know what are the actual limits, that they can find the exact list of.
So I write that on this and submit it?
So you would have a modified, and if we have a Mylar from a different plan somewhere.
And you might wanna
they
get the
have-
wording of them from the minutes or from the secretary and put them right on the plan.
Right.
I can help with that.
Otherwise, I think you certainly have a lot of work to do, but if you can comply with all those conditions, you should be good. Any questions for us this late hour?
No.
Okay. Good. That's, I don't know, if my brain could handle the question. Thank you. And thank you for bearing with us starting a long week.
Thank you.
Calvin, you gonna appeal our decision?
Yeah.
Just so you're aware, some more procedural stuff, that there's 30 days for anyone to file a motion for rehearing.
And you're gonna be filing the revised thing, the staff will help you, there's an appropriate way to do it.
Staff file. Staff registered.
I actually don't know.
You're in Cal's hands now.
Site plans, the registry has said that they don't want them,
Oh, that's right. yeah.
so we would just we would work together to make a final plan that has all of the things on it that we talked about. And then we would file that
In the property record file.
in our files,
So
so,
you don't
You
file
signed it,
the
right?
site plan at the registry?
no, we only
I mean,
do
yeah.
subdivisions and lot line adjustments. Like the registry said they don't want it, basically,
Really?
so it's not, it is filed, but it is not registered.
It's funny that they'll say that they don't want our stuff, but they'll take sovereign citizens filing names on random people.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, if they, I will ask them, like, and if they change their mind, I
No,
will.
it's-
So will there be something registered that has the conditions?
If they don't accept, if they say they don't want, because they've said they don't want this, We
So
can register a
what there
letter.
will be is the town maintains a property record file for every property, which has every approval, former
Yeah, but
tax
when the
cards, all
town
the stuff.
office in Newmarket burned down, they lost all of that,
Yeah,
so.
We-
that stuff happens.
Keep things digitally. We have an online backup that's offsite. We
Yeah.
also have,
Alright.
but
Well, you got Cal raise again.
Yeah.
I don't know, I like the idea of all the records disappearing.
we've had that. We don't like that. That
No,
makes
no.
things harder.
Alright,
Makes
So-
writing the requests easier.
technically, we have more stuff on here.
Yeah,
It's also
There's-
9:30.
there is one that we have to hit.
Okay.
Our next scheduled meeting is
Yeah,
9
you
8,
leave
which is the
before we say
election.
no to something.
Okay.
Calvin has selector duties, I will not be available probably until the wee hours of the next morning. The proposal that I sort of flagged, that there is an opening to do the Monday of the following week, which would be September 14th instead of September 8th.
Do we need a motion for that, or it's?
Wait a minute, so there's no meeting on September 8th, we're gonna have it on the 14th instead?
Unless, if people say, that's a terrible idea, what are we doing? But I think we have an application, so we wanted to still have a meeting before the second September meeting.
What is the application?
The Ackerstons wanna subdivide a new lot.
And there's some problem with the 8th, is that what's happening?
It's the state primary, so
Oh, sure.
like
Yeah.
a lot of the town side people are gonna be busy since polls go to 7.
And so we're gonna move it to the
I'll be-
14th instead?
That's the proposal.
That's the proposal. That's what I'm proposing.
And you got the 15th, all boards meeting.
I was gonna say the
Which
land
is
use
why
boards-
we had trouble with the 15th and then the 16th was someone else, I think.
HDC.
So Monday was the only sort of option, and if we don't have perfect attendance, I'm not gonna hold it against anyone, I hope we still have a quorum. Just let me know if you can't make that Monday, that work. Alright, I'm taking that as affirmative, we'll move it, you can do the notices.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Hey.
Aye.
Aye.
I put it this way, I was gonna say it's for a second.